Hi, this is Leora Lanz, and you're listening to Marketing Mindset Lessons from Hospitality, the podcast where I speak with some of my amazing friends throughout the global landscape of hospitality and marketing. We will share best practices that you can use in your business, whether it's in traditional hospitality or not, whether you are an emerging leader in the industry, or seasoned and wanting to stay fresh and always learning. If you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you need a marketing mindset. Whether you're marketing a business or yourself, we all need a marketing mindset. We know you're busy, but take a listen and figure out how you can apply this fresh thinking to your world, both professional and personal. Let's all think like a marketer.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Mindset Podcast. I'm really happy to be with you today to talk about the intersection of hospitality, marketing, and wellness, something that's really important to me, a topic that I surface in my marketing, whether it's with my students in the classroom or with my clients. And it's a topic that I just feel if hospitality is about making people feel good, then we have a responsibility to do good. And if it means authentically surfacing wellness and sustainability and community into our marketing and into the DNA of our brands, that's where I feel we should go. And someone who I really rely on a lot to teach me, to teach my students as a consult in with professional businesses, someone who I consider my wellness guru, my wellness go-to, is my friend Susie Arnett. And it's my pleasure to have this conversation this morning with Susie. Susie Arnett is a multidisciplinary executive specializing in innovation and strategy in a variety of hospitality sectors, including luxury and wellness. She is passionate about building partnerships that amplify brand awareness and drive revenue. She has worked with properties in the United States, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. She is currently the director of wellness programming at Six Senses. Prior to that, she's worked for the iconic wellness brand Canyon Ranch, the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, and the media company Gaia.com. It is my pleasure to welcome Susie to this conversation. Thank you, Susie, so much for having this talk with me. I'm grateful.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
so
me,
much,
Leora.
Susie. Thank you. And, just to get folks up to speed, people who might be listening to us now or watching this, what brought you into the wellness space in the first place?
Good question. I have just been a wellness nerd since, before there even was wellness, before they called it wellness. And, I had a whole career before hospitality in the television industry, and I worked really hard. I was incredibly stressed and incredibly burned out. And I think I walked into the basement of a YMCA one day and found a yoga class, and just laying on that hard concrete floor on a yoga mat and focusing on my breath for the first time was mind-blowing. And I think it really set me on a journey. I've done everything. I've walked on fire. I've, done shamanic soul retrievals. Like I've been I've been so curious about what actually helps people transform and heal. And so, yeah, it's just made sense that I would end up in this industry because I love this stuff. So,
I don't know if you've answered my next question, but it's interesting that you use the words transform people. How do you define wellness? You didn't call it wellness when you were looking for these outlets to give you balance or peace. I don't know what you called it back then for yourself, but how do you define wellness today too?
Yeah, I think it's God, the industry has kind of given us this language, but I think it's so personalized. What wellness means to me is so different than what it might mean to you or to somebody in their 20s or somebody in their 80s. And so I think it is about feeling good, like you were talking about, our responsibility in hospitality. It's about feeling good and understanding. It's really about self-awareness and self-knowledge, knowing what works for me so that I'm at my best. And that's not a performance at my best. That's just like I'm able to pick up my grandkids if that's what I want to do. I'm able to hike the Camino if that's what I want to do. It's like I'm able to actually live the life that I want to because I have the health, the mental health, the emotional health, the physical health to be able to live my dreams, I guess, on some level.
I love that. Living the life that I want to.
Mm.
That to me is a really good definition of wellness, actually. I
Yeah.
really love hearing that. I really do. I know in class, I typically will say, and you've heard me preach this, defining wellness as that of an individual's mind, body, spirit, and soul. And I am
Yeah.
someone who does believe in spirit and soul. So, but living the life the way you want to. I love that. Now we're going to talk about hotels and hospitality because you work for an incredible, iconic luxury wellness brand.
Mm.
So now brands are using wellness as a USP, unique selling proposition. Some brands are using wellness as an amenity. You're
Mm.
working for a brand where wellness is its identity.
Mm.
Talk to us about the brand and wellness as a combined identity and the fact that
Mhm.
it's generating revenue. Now the business
Yeah.
side of things. Tell me
Right.
about your experiences with Canyon Ranch and Six Senses in that way.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I think it starts, wellness, even as an amenity, is not something that's just kind of drag and drop. It really needs to reflect the brand, right? So the way Aman does wellness versus the way Six Senses or Four Seasons or anybody, they all do it their own way. And it has to be like that. It has to be a reflection of who you are and what your values are. And so, you look at something like Canyon Ranch, which is a much more medical approach. They have doctors and nurses and blood work, and, they have that kind of a wellness profile versus Six Senses, which is a much more of a fun and quirky, maybe a little bit sexier brand in some ways. And so I think there is no kind of monolithic wellness. I think it's much more how you as a brand want to make your own statement. And I think what the problem arises when you do just drag and drop, when you just think, okay,
Right.
I'm just going to do what everybody's doing. I'm reading some trend articles and I say, okay, athletes, let's bring some athletes to the hotel. It doesn't work like that. It really has to be integrated. And I think because so many travelers, because, I think it's always interesting when you think about what's organic demand and what's artificially created demand, right? Like, what do people really want versus what do they think they want? What are they being sold? And I think in the world today, there's so much media around wellness. So I think a lot of people think, oh, I should do some wellness, And so it's great for us because it brings a lot of new people to these experiences that maybe would never have even considered it before. And then that person is like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I wanted this, but I love this. And I want more of it. And what I mean by wellness is more than spa, right? It's not just about getting a massage. We've had that forever. It's about a deeper, more transformative experience.
Transformative. I'm hearing that word again. So there's certainly a distinction between a hotel that is offering yoga classes in its available event space to complement the gym that they have for business travelers, as opposed to a brand like Six Senses where you are now, where the whole reason for being there is this hopefully an intended transformative experience.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I've had this conversation with students even about are transformational experiences intentional or are they spontaneous? And I used to think they were simply spontaneous, but now I'm realizing how intentional they can be, and they can still be transformative when you're going to a place and there's maybe a minimum night stay of 2 or 3 nights to really get the full impact of that experience at a brand like where you are now, where it is intended to be an escape or transformative or a release of some sort for people to come out different than how they came in.
Yeah, well, that's the key, right? I mean, that's the key, because what does it mean to be transformed? And typically, I would say it starts with learning something new about yourself, right? And so there's some inner opening or some inner awareness that's new, an insight that's new. And we definitely can facilitate that. Gurus and monks and yogis have been doing this with people for, a long time, hundreds of years. And so I think we bring the best of those kinds of practices into our experiences at Six Senses, especially. We have sound healing, we have fire ceremony, we have a lot of elemental practices that people probably don't have at home.
Right.
And so they kind of get to touch into something out of the ordinary, and that transforms them in some way. And then they can take that home. And I remember even when I was at Canyon Ranch, they do a lot of arts classes, right, at Canyon Ranch. There's a very robust daily schedule, 3 or 4 things every hour when you go to the ranch. And I remember talking to some guests and they were saying, God, I haven't done art since I was 8,
Right.
and
Elementary
here they're,
school.
and here they're painting. And so I think we offer this incredible palette at places like Six Senses or the ranch or any really great wellness resort. We offer this amazing schedule so that people can explore and dive into things and really access experiences that they don't normally get at home.
Right, right. I wanted to ask you, I'm going to go back to Canyon Ranch for a moment, your experience there. You mentioned its point of distinction in terms of the wellness offering that it has is more sort of medically focused. You taught me a couple of terms over the years. I've learned some of my wellness vocabulary thanks to you, including biohacking, pioneering wellness. Can you just give us a little lesson in sort of what this part of, because from a marketing perspective, that is a point of distinction. And I just want you to sort of teach folks who are listening to this what that means.
Yeah. Well, and I will say at Six Senses too, which is a brand known for its pioneering wellness, that biohacking has been a real driver for, and biohacking doesn't mean medical. So we'll separate those two. Yeah.
Okay,
Biohacking is really, it's become a technology-based term where you're using tools like Aura rings or Whoops to measure your bio data to be able to optimize it, right? But it also kind of has expanded into things like compression therapy, the Normatec boots and things like that. Like we have a whole recovery suite at Six Senses where we're vetting all the technology all the time. Like we get pitched technology all the time. This bed is supposed to transform your nervous system. It's supposed to heal your cells. Like, we hear there's so much of this kind of stuff out there. So we're always vetting to see what actually works, and what's really got the science and the evidence behind it. And that is different from medical, right? Because these are technologies that people can use to kind of recover faster, exercise faster. There's amazing tools now where you can get, it would have taken you an hour of exercise to get the same effect, and now you can do it in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Like restricted blood flow therapy is something where they'll like put a band on your thigh and then you'll exercise with it. And because the blood collects in those muscles, you actually get the same impact as if you'd been running for a half hour in a short amount of time. So there's tons of, and that's what biohacking, I want to recover faster. I want to strengthen faster. I want to sleep deeper. I want to do all these things better. But it's interesting because, we have all of this stuff at Six Senses. It's so fun to play with and guests love it. And, and also there's a whole population that's really moving away from technology. They just want to be outside. They want to be barefoot on the ground. We have barefoot walks. They want a sunrise and sunset. They really want to be in this physical human reality and get away from technology. So
we often hear digital detox as a term too. Yeah. Now you've shared some of these points, but in your mind, what does it take to create a wellness brand? What sort of, you've worked for a few, they clearly have their points of distinction. What makes them genuine or authentic? What do you think it takes for these hospitality brands to focus on wellness? Where do they begin?
Yeah, I think it really starts at the beginning. It's not something you can just tack on at the end. And so when you think even at the level of design of your space, and, I think you and I have talked about this, wellness is a byproduct of your stay. You don't have to even sign up for wellness to have a wellness trip, right? Because the materials used to build the building are healthy. There's biophilic design. There's the sheets are all natural fibers. Like it's not about the program in the spa. It's really about the entire environment has been built to be healthy. There's sunlight. There's lots of natural light in the windows. There's fresh air coming through the lobby. There's, the people who work there are trained in such a way that they are emotionally regulated, and that they understand presence and connection. So we're building these physical environments, but we're building emotional environments, right? There's an energetic field, if you would go there, in these spaces. And so I think there needs to be, when you're working with your architect, I mean, when we were building Six Senses New York years ago, I remember going with the team to the property, to the construction site, and we had brought a shaman, and they did all this rituals to like connect to the earth and to connect to the land and make our intentions and our prayers, for the property and for the place. And so I think,
That's genuine.
That's Neil Jacobs
going
too.
into that's amazing.
Yeah. So I think if there's it's not like a physical thing always, it's like a very much an intentional thing, to bring that level of awareness to the building process, to the construction, to the design. And it's funny because the shaman said, oh, there's like this vortex in the space. And he didn't even know, but the architect built the design in a kind of circular shape that matched what the shaman saw energetically.
So he got a
land.
sense of it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
you mentioned a regulation of emotions. I think I need to learn how to regulate my emotions, so I can appreciate that. Let's get to marketing for a second, because you talked about wellness travel marketing.
Yeah.
It's storytelling. We all use the word storytelling a lot, right? Because that's what connects. But do you have some examples, or what do you want to share for those who are trying to understand, how do we actually market wellness, whether it's as a byproduct of the stay or the intention for the stay? What's the right way to share those stories?
Yeah. Well, I always feel like when I'm reading copy, just at the very basic level of copy on a website, on a wellness page, for example, or a spa page, you don't want to see just like a page of words, like the experience of reading, of interacting with the marketing should feel well. It should feel spacious. It should feel relaxing. It shouldn't make me stressed. And I think for years, a lot of wellness was incredibly prescriptive. And it was like, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this. And so you'd go to these websites and just be like, oh my God, like this is so much work. I'm repelled on some level by it. And so I think that the storytelling is, really needs to reflect the brand and the offering in that way. And it's interesting because I was on Instagram and I don't know, just popped up on my feed. There are these reading retreats. And this woman has organized a reading retreat where you basically, it's a small group, mostly solo women travelers, I think maybe 10 women. They were going up to Maine. She rented a house. You could read your book. It's just like, it's so funny. And then in the afternoon, you might go on a hike or do like a boat, go out on the boat or whatever. And then you have meals together. And I thought, you know what? I love that. Like I would sign up for that. And there was the storytelling she did about rest and about you deserve this and about, taking space for yourself, I think is a message that a lot of women especially need to hear or it really resonate with. And so I think that you always have to keep your customer in mind in terms of what you're selling. And it's funny because a lot of times wellness brands also trying to bring in men, right? Because this is like women pretty much buy wellness, of course. And every place I've ever worked is like, how do we get more men to do wellness? Kripalu, Candy Ranch, Six Senses. How do we get more men? What do we design for men? And it's a very different orientation, right? They don't need the soft, or maybe some of them do, but you kind of end up going into this real performance storytelling, about optimizing and about the biohacking and the tech and the data.
So it's a different message.
It's a very different message. It's a very different message in some ways. And, but it's funny, we haven't really been able to, men are coming slowly into the wellness, but mostly through those doors. So.
Interesting. You also shared with me when we chatted about storytelling going from fixing to remembering.
Yeah.
Define what you mean by that. It makes sense to me because it's
Hmm.
the way I'm interpreting that is I want this experience to help repair, recover, and it'll become something that becomes memorable and important and significant. Is that where you're going with what storytelling will resonate in
Yeah.
the
Well,
marketing of wellness?
I think so. And I think it goes back to, we don't want to be prescriptive. We're not trying to fix you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay.
We're not here to say we know what your problem is or we know what you need to be better, but we're saying that we can listen. We're really here as a brand to listen to you. And and I think the best marketing does land because I feel seen. I feel like my problems are understood or my state is understood. And it's funny when we're doing a deep rest retreat that we're putting together right now. And, we've been, how do we talk about deeper? I mean, just deep rest. I'm like, yes, there's just something in that for people right now who are exhausted and stressed and all of that. But, we're thinking a lot about, well, how do we tell the story of deep rest in a way that makes people feel like they even reading the marketing is restful on some level. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
that
I do.
we're just trying to help you get to your best place. We're not trying to solve your problems for you, but we are trying to help you land and remember who you are without all the stress and get you back. I think
Okay.
that's what travel is, right? Like we're escaping, we're getting away from the grind so that we're like, oh yeah, that's who I am, when I'm not really stressed all the time.
So what advice would you have for wellness brands as they
Hmm.
market? Do
Yeah.
we do we go out there and say we're here to take care of your wellness? Is it that, clear? Or
Yeah.
is it softer storytelling? Because everybody, as you said, it's personalized and everyone's got their own way of what wellness means to them. So
Hmm.
how should wellness brands
I think
share
they
their
should
messaging?
I think they do need to be softer about it. And I think you need to know who your audience is. And it's different there isn't, again, like there isn't one wellness product, there isn't one wellness customer. And so somebody said to me, so I'm live in Western Mass. We have a lot of wellness in Western Mass. We have Canyon Ranch, we have Miraval, we have Kripalu, we have a new resort opening. We have all these mansions, right? And so from the Gilded Age. And so these companies come in and renovate these mansions and open these wellness resorts. And they said, is there room for so many of these kind of brands in one place? And the fact is, even though they all kind of sound the same on the surface, they're very different inside. Like the experience of Canyon Ranch and Miraval are very different inside. And I'm sure there's some overlap, but they really have their own customers. And so
Yeah.
I think for wellness hospitality brands, you really need to be clear on who your customer is. You're not selling to some generic wellness market. You're really selling to your person. And so knowing who that person or who those three people are, those three types is primary. And
I
then
actually
speaking their
think,
language.
for Western Mass,
Mm.
to be known or become and emerge as a wellness
Yeah,
destination,
destination.
it's actually a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And then finally, just to wrap up, Susie, in terms of what advice do you have for the consumer, the
Mm.
person who wants a wellness experience?
Yeah.
Everybody's different. So do they go for a day situation? Do they go for where it's an amenity?
Yeah.
If they want to have a 3-day retreat at a certain price point, right? So how would you advise consumers that want that wellness experience? What should they be looking for in the
Yeah.
marketing materials or in the connection that they're learning about these brands?
Yeah. I think that there's so much out there now, which is what's great. I mean, you can get wellness at any price point, at any length. And so, for example, my daughter is just graduating from college and really wants to learn meditation. So we've been looking. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see, let's find a 2-hour class for you where she is in college and just kind of get a taste. And then, for somebody who wants a longer, more extended experience, I always feel like I look first at the credentials of the person designing or leading the retreat, or even the brand who's, when I'm looking at different wellness brands, like I want to know who is behind it, and what kind of experience do they, especially if you're going on a retreat, you want to know
Sure.
like what credentials have they been trained, you're putting your time in their hands. Like I want to know
Sure.
that I can feel, I can trust that. But,
It's research.
it's research. Yeah. Like any
Yeah.
travel. Yeah. Yeah.
Do
But it
your
really
research.
comes down to the people. Yeah. I think it's about the people though, first. Yeah.
Okay. Which
Yeah,
is in
'cause you're
fact the hospitality.
Yeah, exactly. You're
Okay.
putting your life in somebody's hands, not in in a way.
Yeah, because
So,
it does transform.
yeah.
So, I mean, I know we could talk for days because we both really enjoy this topic, and we also really enjoy sort of the various opportunities to experience
Mm,
something that creates a wellness in us. So thank you for this conversation. I hope that it inspires folks to even just take a few minutes for yourself every day. It's such a
mm.
stressful world that we're in. So we really do need to be aware and intentional with our
Mm.
wellness. And I want to thank these brands that are committed to authentically offer the kinds of services that help humans live their best lives. Susie, I could talk wellness with you all day. You know that because we practically have. Any last words to wrap up?
Yeah, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes I think it's by Naval Ravikant, when he says the true sign of intelligence is to create a life that you love. And I think that speaks to what wellness is all about, and really about using your resources, your intelligence, making choices so that you have a life that feels good to you. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
We're going to end it right with that. No one could say that better. Thank you, Susie, very much.
Thanks, Leora, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Marketing Mindset, Lessons from Hospitality. Marketing Mindset is a production of Think Tank Media and the Hospitality Nexus, the global platform for hospitality education, with resources such as podcasts, articles, and video tutorials. I'm your host, Leora Lanz, and if you want to learn more about how we can work together, visit my LinkedIn at Leora Halpern Lanz. Remember to order a copy of my debut book, the international bestseller, Developing Your Marketing Mindset, Real-World Lessons from Hospitality, which also won the Business Book of 2025 award from the New England Book Festival. And the newest in the series, the companion book, Marketing Mindset in Motion, inspired by hospitality. Everything you need to think like a marketer for your business, your service, or yourself. Connect with meaning through wellness, sustainability, and community to market with meaning and remember the hospitality. Until next time.